Hey everyone, this is chapter 12, and within this podcast, it is Nimley, which is me, Quishelle, Adenike, Jalen, and here are the objectives. Objective number one, select conference option best suit to your students and their parents' needs. Objective number two, prepare for conduct and debrief feedback and goal setting conferences. Objective number three, prepare for conduct and debrief achievement conferences. And then objective number four, prepare for conduct and debrief intervention conferences. So I am going to be covering objective number three, which is prepare for conduct and debrief achievement conferences. So the key thing is to focus on organizing student.
So I have objective number one, which is select conference options best suited to your students and their parents' needs. I would send out a communication prior to the conference to establish communication with the parents to figure out their schedules and see, what option works best for them for a conference. And I would have virtual options available for parents who have work issues or transportation issues, but I also will have that traditional in-person conference as well. And I would establish a set of goals and objectives to address with the students in front of the parents, and also address a plan to achieve those objectives and goals. And I'll also discuss a goal with the parents for them to take home to help their child progress at home, as well as, to take them back to school. So overall, it's a teamwork. And this can be done by setting clear goals and objectives to keep the meeting focused on growth and not just grades. You can also do this by starting with a positive feedback and use strength-based approaches. And you can also collaborate on action plans and follow up regularly. So just, overall working as a team, establish communication, set goals, set plans, follow up with those goals and plans, and make sure that everything is going successful.
Hello, I'm Adenike Shabazz, and I had objective 2, which was prepare for, conduct, and debrief feedback and goal setting conferences. So this objective is really all about taking where the student is and helping them focus on where they need to be or where they want to be. One thing that is known about like Title I schools is that they are known for growth. We are good at taking our level 1 students and moving to number 2 students moving to number 3, and so on. We are really, really good about goal setting when it comes to the major exams. Like I remember with my 6th graders, we would even have like special study sessions for our number 2s to get them to their to become a level 3 scoring student on their EOGs. So it is something that is incredibly important because it shows the child that they can set a goal and actually achieve it. And that, in my opinion, is very, very good for their self-worth. But to tie it back to these conferences, to quote the chapter, the point of the conferences is to offer information that will provide students insight so that they can increase their learning. So I really took that as I am taking what I see the student do. I am taking from their assessment information. I am taking from just how they are within the community of the school. Are they high flyers? Are they really outgoing? Do they have a lot of friends? Are they silent to themselves? Can I tell there's maybe something going on more at home? Is there something maybe going on further? Like, do they have a learning disability? Things of that nature. So I gather this information that I have been collecting over the course of the semester, quarter, whatever time frame, and I bring it to the student like, hey, so just based off of everything that has been going on and everything, this is where we are. I think, let's talk about like what we think you should be able to do after this amount of time, by the end of this quarter, by the end of this semester, by the end of this school year. Where do I think you should be, or where do I think you can be? And let's set that as a goal, and then let's even have mini goals. That's what I would do, at least, is have mini goals that take us to Z, right? So let's say that I'm an ELA teacher and you're at I don't know how they do letters. I don't know how they do the scores, but when I was a student, we did letters. So let's say by 6th grade, you're supposed to be a letter Q or so, right? And I have a student that's still N. Okay, well, by the end of this quarter, we're going to start looking at level O books. And by the end of the next quarter, we're going to be working on letter P. And by the end of the next quarter, we're going to be looking at Q until the student gets to where they are, and making sure that, okay, so we're going to be able to take this passage and be able to analyze it and look for these things and help them walk through it. So I think that is really important. Is, like I said, the biggest thing is just taking all the information and working with the student as to where they want to be. Where do they see themselves? Do they think they can even get there? Why do they think that they aren't there yet? And things like that. Debriefing is a critical step. You have to make sure that we reflect and that we actually take notes, so that we note on in general what they've been doing. To quote again, we're talking about like what worked well, what didn't work well, and what we would do differently. So this reflection is really important because it helps them notice even where they might have fallen short. I wish my ELA teacher would do this to me in 8th grade, because boy, oh boy, this would have helped me just personally. She tried to, but we had a falling out. She didn't do something nice when it came to our relationship. She went and told my dad stuff, and I was just like, bro, you got me in trouble. I was like, I didn't even know this is how you felt. I wish you just told me. I was like, you didn't tell me anything. So then I got in trouble at home, and I was really upset because I was not at all a student or a child that got in trouble too often. So yeah, so that is the biggest thing, is prepare, conduct, and debrief. That is how I interpreted this objective number 2.
So covering objective number 3, prepare for, conduct, and debrief achievement conference. So the key thing is to focus on organizing students' progress by data tracking and selecting meaningful evidence of learning. So conducting pretty much look like welcoming students and parents, and like focusing on fitness, health knowledge, and behavior, highlighting good behavior, and then highlighting student strength and also improvement. Also, you want to encourage students' voice when parents discuss goals and next steps. So that's what it looks like for me with conducting. Now, debriefing is just to take notes on key feedbacks and concerns about students, like reflect on students' progress and conference effectiveness. So I just talked about objective number 3. Key points to remember about objective number 3 is just make sure that achievement conferences pretty much focus on students' growth, and it should be a clear communication between you and the teacher, highlighting the students' progress. And for me, it'll be like looking at the skill level, their improvement, comparing it. And then also you want to have goal setting for improvement. All right, let's talk about my reflection question. So my reflection question is, how does this chapter align with your beliefs about teaching and learning? I believe with chapter 12 that student progress is very important. As a teacher, you want to know how well the student is doing and being able to communicate with the parent.
I had objective number 4, which was to prepare for conduct and debrief intervention conferences. So for me, what this would look like for me as a PE teacher, what I would have to start by noticing a specific skill. So we just finished basketball, and noticing a student who is struggling with that specific skill. For example, doesn't have the proper form, or is not participating in like the team activities, so like a group play basketball game. Then before the meeting, I will collect my observations that I noticed during class time with the student in my notes, and that like the notes might say has trouble shooting or is hesitant about team games or something, I don't know. And then I will think about and set a clear goal for that student. So then during the conference, I will talk with the student and kid-friendly terms and use kid-friendly terms, relax, and in a supportive way. And I would ask questions like, I wrote some questions down like, what feels hard about this? What do you think you can try differently? Or what are some strategies we could do together to help you improve on this goal? And also in the reading, I learned that the goal is to help the student reflect and not feel judged. So I have to be really careful about not nitpicking and judging the kids based off what they're struggling with, but to also be supportive. But to be supportive for them and to come up with some resources to help them. So after or during the conference, I can also demonstrate the skill. Like I can record a video of me actually doing the skill and let them see the video, or I can actually do it of me dribbling the ball and breaking it into smaller parts for them to understand slower in kid-friendly terms. And then me and the student can agree on one simple goal that we can practice together to help them achieve that goal. For example, like stepping forward when throwing, when passing the ball to a teammate. So that is my reflection on objective number 4. Reflection number 1, which was what ideas are most useful and convincing and why. For me, from the chapter, the idea that I found most convincing was making conferences feel like conversations instead of just lectures. I noticed that it's really important for students to have their own voice during the conference and not just make it feel like it's just teachers and parents doing the talking. When kids have their own say in the conference, it makes them own their learning, and then makes them more motivated and aware of the things they need to change and improve on. So instead of just telling a student on what they need to change and improve on, we can come together and connect and reflect on ways and work on strategies that can help the student do better in class. I feel like this keeps the idea of open communication and making communication simple, effective, and supportive, and it makes the student be the center of the focus and not just parents and teachers. And when students are involved in their own learning, I feel like students are able to do better and go beyond.
So I have reflection number 2, question number 2. How does this chapter align with your own belief about teaching and learning? Like I said, it's all about, monitoring students' progress and communicating. For me, that looks like looking at student skill level. How have they improved? Have they been able to do the task? So this chapter aligned with my belief that teaching should focus on students' growth rather than just grades. It reinforced the importance of students reflecting on their progress and taking ownership of their learning, especially in health and PE, where effort and skills is applied and the habits does matter. It also supports involving students in conference to build confidence and improve communication. Pretty much in conclusion, overall, the chapter emphasized that conferences should help students understand their progress and set goals for improvement, which I totally agree with. Especially that's one of the reasons I love teaching PE, because we're not so focused on grades. Like if a student has A's or B's, well, at the elementary level, it's more so does the student understand the skills? Do they know how to do the skills and tracking their progress? Like, especially when it comes to special ed, working with them is very unique because you get to see the progression, how they are growing.
So I have reflection number 3. The reflection number 3 is, which strategy or idea from this chapter would you feel most confident implementing and why? And I would say after reading this chapter, I feel most confident about implementing the chart on page 333, which is a status target plan outline for students. I think this is a great thing for them to fill out so that way they can realize, what things they want to work on and what things, in the future they know they're going to achieve. And there are 2 examples provided on that page for younger students and for older students, so you have that variety of depending on your what type of class you're teaching. And I think both of them would be beneficial to use for students because they can physically see themselves, like see their plan and their goal for that year. And, they can make their own agenda. And why I feel this would why I feel like this is something good because it will hold the students responsible for their own academic success and development. Overall, it's letting the students take more charge, less than the teacher, about their future in the classroom. And that is my reflection.
All right, and I have reflection number 4, which is essentially just asking, what do I feel the most uncertain about practicing of this chapter? And just to summarize it, like just based off of the objectives, we are having conferences with students to figure out, where they are and how to get there to where they want to be. So my objective was specifically with the goal setting, but then objective number 3 was talking about achievement conferences. So on the other side of like, okay, you're doing really, really well, but it's still goal setting, in my opinion. You still end up having to talk about, okay, you're doing really, really well. What have you been doing? What do you think works well? What is something that I could do to help you get better? Or, how can we take this further? It's still, I feel, all about growth. I feel like this chapter is really just how to help your student grow. And this is through conferences, whether with the teacher, whether just with the student or with the student and the parent. But yes, this is about conferences. The last objective was about intervention conferences, which are really supposed to just talk about our concerns. If that is something that you have to go through, I know I most definitely have had conferences with parents and students, or just students, about intervention. So behaviors that I wanted to change or needed to change. But something that I feel uncertain about doing is for sure, well, I always say this, it's the planning. It is collecting the data. It is a lot easier to plan for students that are not doing very well because you are noticing it. You are noticing when students aren't performing well on tests, especially consistency. You are noticing when there are behaviors that are disruptive. It's a lot easier to notice negative behaviors. So to intervene, to goal set and everything comes a lot easier, because that in general is going to make your life easier. And you know that as a student that genuinely, okay, you really need to catch up. I feel like the hardest part is catching the students that are in the middle or your high flyers, because especially the students in the middle, to where they're not doing awesome, but they're nowhere near your worst. They're really hard to catch, because you're just like, well, I don't really know what you need to change. What do you think needs to happen? Because you're just not on my radar at all, so that is what I'm most scared of, is ignoring my middle field students the most, because they are the ones that sadly could, be a lot better. So it is planning, and in general, just missing them. I know that's not really, I guess, about the uncertain. I'm not really uncertain about any of it. Like, it all makes sense. If I'm going to have conferences, like intervention conferences, of course I have to prepare, I have to conduct them, I have to debrief, I have to make sure that I come from somewhere that has sympathy and empathy, as well as somebody who has, say in the situation, as well as somebody who has to, take charge and actually help the student get to their goals. Because a lot of times behavior that happens in the classroom is behavior that is done at home, but, is addressed differently. Or sometimes they do it for attention at home. I've had a lot of students to where they're just like, they don't act like that at all at home. I don't know where they're getting this from. But then you talk to the student, he's like, yeah, mom doesn't come home till 8 o'clock. I've already done my homework, taken a shower, watch TV. I'm about to go to bed. And then they leave for work before I'm awake, or like they don't spend any time. So it's like them getting in trouble is where they get extra time with their parents. So, I'm not really uncertain about it all, outside of just the planning for my middle students, because I'm not paying attention to the fact that they got 70s on stuff. I'm not paying attention to the little bit of questions that they got here or there wrong, and where I notice that they're not paying attention versus where they are, and it's a lot harder to notice that, especially if you have a classroom where you have students that are just doing awful, and then of course your high flyers that are really, really engaging and doing well and make you feel like a great teacher. Like those ones in the middle are very, very easy to just gloss over. So I guess it's being more noticeable and being more attentive is a better word, for my middle students. So nothing necessarily I'm uncertain about using. It's just now that I have this information, making sure that I apply it to all my students and not just certain demographics. But yes, this was an awesome semester. I'm glad that it's over, at least, but also, yeah.
So I do have the conclusion, so I'm going to end this out. Overall, the main goal of this week's chapter was about how to properly plan an effective and efficient conference between students and parents, and how to plan for it, and how to ensure it's successful for everyone. And I think this week gave a great example of different methods and ways that a teacher can go about it, different ways that students can contribute, and parents. I think that's what the overall chapter was about, and everybody's reflection in our group gave their own opinions of, you guys' experiences as teachers and how you would handle the situation. And so with that being said, this is the end of our progress journey. Why do we teach? And it's been great. And thank you for listening to our weekly discussions.